My name is Adele Lim. I'm the director of the movie JoyRide, and I was born and raised in Malaysia. So JoyRide is about four completely different friends who take a trip to Asia searching for one of their birth mothers. And it is a story about belonging and identity and really, the evolution of your friendships and where that goes. The toughest part about shooting JoyRide is that it's set largely in Asia, and we shot exclusively in Vancouver. So having a production designer who could really bring that authenticity was of paramount importance. And talking to Michael Wong, he blew us out. He blew it out of the water. He had brought in all these pictures from his own life, his own family, pictures from his grandmother's kitchen in Hong Kong. And the moment I saw that, having grown up in Asia, I was like, this is a man who knows like the look and the feel. And there are all these intangibles, when you're talking about a film set in Asia, it's not about lanterns or, having certain props. It is about having love, like for an Asian audience to be able to see without even completely understanding it. There's something in the texture, in the colors, in the choices that says like this movie was made from somebody who knows you. Beverley is brilliant, and not just because she had to come up with looks for four very, very different characters. You could not come up with characters who are more different. It's that these four characters also go on this journey of transformation through Asia and get in some pretty crazy situations, including pretending to be part of a K-pop band. And so Beverley had to come up with looks that really told you immediately, this is who this character is, like a really quick read of it. Audrey being a professional, Lolo being an artist who's kind of zany and crazy, Kat being this like super glam actress, Deadeye just kind of being offbeat and their own weird creature. And, being able to nail all those moments and to track that progression that really reflected their changes as a character was a huge undertaking. Cherry and Teresa and I have been friends for years, and we would just go out to dinner, shoot the shit, talk about all our messed up, thirsty, ridiculous friends. And one day we were just talking about it, cracking ourselves up, thinking, we need to write a movie about this. We don't know who's gonna wanna shoot this or make this, but it'll make us happy. So we would just show up to my house every Thursday and just for the hell of it, break the story. And we just made ourselves laugh nonstop. So we broke the whole story, wrote it up, had a ton of fun doing it, and took it out to the world and wanted to see who would be game to make it. When we brought it to Point Grey and Lionsgate, we fully expected, we were bracing ourselves for that fight. Or like, they're gonna tell us to pull it back and we're gonna we're gonna tell them no. And to our delight, they said like, no, not only do we embrace all of this and want to celebrate it with you, we want you to lean harder into it. And so we did. Ashley Park is a miracle. I'm just going to start by saying that we knew how important it was for the character of Audrey to be played by somebody who could absolutely hold the audience and be relatable and talented and winsome. And, as you know, like they aren't necessarily a lot of Asian American feature A-listers because of opportunities. I remember talking to my friend Daniel Day Kim, and we were working on Raya and the Last Dragon together, and telling him about my movie and talking about the issues of finding that amazing lead character who could carry a movie like JoyRide. And he said, have you heard of this amazing talent called Ashley Park? And I researched Ashley that evening because I'm a Broadway ignorant. And I went down an Ashley Park wormhole. And that night I called Daniel. I was like, I have to know this creature. Put her in touch with me immediately. So I Zoomed with Ashley. She was on the East Coast. Immediately fell in love with her and knew that she had to be Audrey. She had to be the lead of our movie. The role of Kat is really interesting because on one side, she's this, glamorous actress, and that has, there's a certain perception to that. But also we wanted to be somebody with this very vulnerable insight, this squishy insight that you could absolutely relate to and bleed for. And Stephanie was absolutely that character. It was absolutely that actor that we needed for the role, that she's able to do the broad, ridiculous, heightened, insane stuff, at the same time ground that character and make her feel like someone real, someone who's your best friend. When you have four actors who've never worked together before, it's a crapshoot. You don't know if they're going to get along. You don't know what the chemistry is going to be. We had Sherry Cole kind of get the group together before our first table read because Sherry Cole absolutely has that den mom, let's bring it all in for a hug, bitches energy to her. And they showed up at the table read and blew the roof off the place. There's a song in the movie that you'll see, but they decided to, as unprompted by any of us, really come together and harmonize and put that, and perform that song. And from that moment on, everyone in the table read was just like, oh my God, here they are, fully formed. The triangle of friendship, particularly with female friendships, that's something that most women can relate to, of feeling that your friend is outgrowing you, or feeling, worried that, someone is going to emotionally leave you, being jealous of the new, shinier, better friend. And that's one of the relationships that I am most proud of in the movie, because it starts from a place of total contention and conflict, and they could not be more different. One's this artsy penis-obsessed artist, and the other one is this actress with all this finesse who would never dream of saying the word penis. And by getting into this journey and getting messy and nasty and really hashing it all out, they end up in this really amazing close place, and probably as close as each of their relationships to Audrey. Even though our movie is kind of batshit and heightened and crazy, at its heart, I wanted it to feel authentic and true, because it's also a love letter. Cherry Teresa and I wanted to make a movie that we wish we had in our 20s. And if parts of it just didn't look or feel right, it just would have it would have completely routed the tone. And so it was important to have people who understood the culture, understood the humor, understood how people walk and dress in Asia, and just being able to put the Asian American layer on all of it was really important. All of us in our families have that one Deadeye cousin or uncle or aunt who's just that slightly offbeat, relative who, doesn't totally fit into a neat box, but you love. And we wanted to bring that character to life in Deadeye. Growing up, watching early American movies featuring Asian Americans, whether it was Nancy Kwan in The Flower Drum Song or the cast of Joy Luck Club, seeing that happen puts it into your head oh my God, this is a place where our stories can be celebrated and put front and center. And so I would just hope with, us being out there directing movies like this, even if they're batshit and crazy and completely inappropriate, that it is a sign to, young filmmakers out there. It doesn't matter what I look like, where I come from, how fucked up the stories I want to tell are, there's going to be a place for me. Our three hottie guys, Chris Pang, Alexander Hodge, Desmond Chiam, who are, by the way, all personal friends of ours. I just got on the phone with all of them pretty much and said, we have this crazy movie that we're shooting and I'm directing. It's probably going to be no money and you're going to probably have your shirt off and look hot. So just do it. Just show up and do it. And they did. Our community comes through. The K-pop scene is one of my favorite sequences in the movie. It was baked into the beginning of it because Cherry, Teresa, and I, and probably the whole world, are huge fans of K-pop, and we thought this would be the perfect movie to platform one of those sequences. The look was going to be joyful and fun and wish fulfillment, because truly, you know, what woman or gay man hasn't wanted to be part of a K-pop group? When Beverley Huynh came up with the looks for them, we saw it just even in concept. I remember saying, like, I have no notes. Like, this is completely perfect. And not just that it looked like a fantasy K-pop costume, but it also channeled each of the characters. Like, the look of Audrey is very different from the look of Kat's, and Deadeye's look is just like, mwah, money. This movie is about friendship and some batshit sequences that we wish we got into with our friends. It is this insane, joy-filled, bananas romp that you wish you took with your 4 friends, and getting into like the most insane, sometimes dangerous, very sexually inappropriate situations, and like coming out on the other side, surviving and being stronger for it.
Hi, my name is Alexander Hodge and I play Todd. He is a basketball player in the CBA and Kat's ex. There's a lot of, I mean, the themes of this, because we have so many different, you know, Asian personalities and identities on screen, we're seeing so many different, I guess, conversations and themes around, you know, what a person's identity is or what their relationship is to their identity and, you know, what that means to be Asian within that. And I think for myself, there's always been a struggle of, am I Asian enough or am I not Asian enough? Am I too Asian for some and not enough for the other? So this has been a really wonderful exploration and almost validation to be amongst so many different identities and experiences, but still come under the umbrella of being Asian. I think the cool thing is to see people, you know, in ways that we haven't been seen before, you know, and that sounds really cheesy, but it's absolutely vital for young kids to see themselves be able to be an athlete, you know, to be able to pursue something that hasn't been accessible to them in the past. And then, you know, on a more macro scale with the whole film, it's important for people to understand that whatever their experience is being Asian, it's valid. You are Asian. There's no discounting that. Your experience is yours and you are Asian. Rush Hour. Jackie Chan, the man, he was the one, man. He was the first time I saw myself on screen. He's the reason I wanted to learn how to fight. I still can't. He's the reason I wanted to be funny. He's the reason I wanted to be in film. He was the hero. He was the unlikely hero that made me feel like I could be something.
Hi, I'm Ashley Park, and I'm playing Audrey Sullivan. I have one sister in real life, and her name is Audrey. And so when I first got this script and I was reading it through, I was like, this is absolutely insane, because that's my sister's name. And what's really fun is a lot of times on set, people will be like, Ashley, Audrey, you know, and I grew up with my parents doing that to us all the time, so I'm really used to it. I think the first time I saw myself represented on screen in a major way was the Mulan animated motion picture. And what's interesting is any other time that I saw an Asian person on screen, it was always in supporting characters or the villain or characters that were there as really like accessories, you know? Until I think Charlie's Angels with Lucy Liu was the first time I saw an Asian actor playing something at the same level within the storytelling as their white counterparts, which was awesome to see. My first impression when I read the script was, I mean, I don't think I've laughed so hard at a script. I think I read the whole thing in my bed in one sitting. And also I cried the first time. And every time, every version that I've read since then, I laughed and I cried a lot. And my first feeling too was that it's interesting. I read this script and I saw bits of myself in every one of the characters. I read each of the characters as I would if I played each of them, you know? And that was what was so cool. And I think it was very authentic in that way, in that all four of the characters at the helm of this story really are fully fleshed out humans. And it's rare to find that for one Asian character in a script, and to get that for a whole spectrum of characters in a script was really, really mind-blowing. And I think it was that to be honest, I was very impressed, because when you get a script and you're told this was written by 3 Asian females and it wants to be produced by so-and-so, you know, you're hoping for it to just be awesome. And your expectations are so high, and my expectations were just blown out of the water. All of the scenes and all of the characters, what I love about them so much is I really think every person has a little bit of each of them. You know, our favorite game to play is, okay, so which one are you? It's kind of like what people do with the Hogwarts houses. Like, are you Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff, you know? And I really think that by the end of this movie, people will be like, oh, I'm a little bit Deadeye and a little bit Audrey, but I definitely have some Lolo tendencies, but I like want to be Cat. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's what's really fun, is that you get these like 4 fully realized characters. And 4 very distinct relationships between all of the characters and very interesting dynamics. And that's the kinds of stuff that I'm interested in being a part of in storytelling, that is really, really sensational and fun to be a part of. And storytelling that oftentimes Asian Americans are not included in. She's a lawyer and fast tracking to become partner. She was adopted as an infant, and she has 2 parents who love her dearly and who she loves very much. She's grown up in a town and in a world that is very white. But I think that in the way that she doesn't, on paper, she excels at everything. She does her best. I don't think, what I love about her is I don't think she's a prude or judgmental or any of that, which is why she's best friends with Lolo. But she has such empathy to her. But when it's about work and it's about getting the job done, she's completely type A in that way. And I think she just wants, because she felt like she didn't belong while growing up, immediately the best way to deal with that is by just being the best you can be in any single thing that you do, whether it be squash or school or anything. And I think she's a really great daughter and a really great friend. And we meet her at the beginning of this movie. She's a homeowner. She's got a great job. She is, yeah. It's all potential for Audrey at the beginning of this film. And it's this trajectory that she has seen for herself her whole life. And that trajectory is what is questioned throughout the movie. Is that a personal trajectory or one that she's imposing on herself because of the society that she's kind of grown up in? Professionally on this trip, Audrey wants to go to China for the few days and close this business deal with Chau so that she can make partner at her law firm. And then that will lead her to bigger and better things, going to LA, going to a life, you know, she's lived in the same town her whole life. And I think that it's kind of like when you graduate high school, you're ready for college. And she's like, I know everything here. I've conquered it. I think Audrey is most comfortable when she's like, knows exactly how she's about to conquer the domain that she's in. I think that stepping away from this project afterwards, I will be an entirely changed kind of actor and human and comedian. And it honestly has made me so excited so excited by the film world in general. I've always loved movies. But again, it's so funny. It's like I never saw this kind of character or an Asian person playing this kind of protagonist in a comedy. So I never really let myself go into the world of really thinking I could be a part of it. I enjoyed observing it. And now that I've lived it, I cannot wait to, I'm just so excited by everything that I've learned, whether it just be like camera lenses or anything. It's my first studio film. And so I'm massively grateful. The first time the four of us were together was when we got together right before, the day before our table read to try to figure out how we would do WAP for the table read. And honestly, like for our chemistry read together, there was just something sparkly about it. I'll talk about Sherry first because she was the next person who was cast. It was just so easy. And you saw earlier too. What's so funny is so many people in Vancouver on our crew were like, how many years have you guys known each other? And what I feel about Stephanie and Sherry and Sabrina, what is so wild is that I just, on set, has never been more collaborative. It's just been so lovely and humbling to have someone who, this was their first audition, and is a very experienced writer and stand-up comedian. I think that me and Stephanie are very trained theater actors, and then we have two very skilled stand-up comedians, and somehow that fusion is just really, really magic. All three of them are just very skilled comedians, which gives leeway to allow them to bring such heart into these characters. And Sherry I could talk about for days. Just the positivity, the cheerleader, the understanding and gratitude of this opportunity, and reminding us for it always. And just, again, just zero ego on the set in terms of when somebody needs something, or when somebody has a question, or when somebody has an idea, a completely judgment-free zone, and just complete excitement all around. And I just think all three of them are just the most professional. I've just never had a better time on a set.
Hi, I'm Baron Davis, and I'm playing Baron Davis in the movie. Adele as a director is just, she's a doll, she's a darling, she's like a darling superstar point guard. Like, you just see her out there, just kind of directing and leading and communicating, and she just has a great way of delivering messages to help you do, what's best for you. Yeah, the fact that, I'm playing a basketball player, so what more can I identify with than basketball? And then just kind of like a lot of the funny moments that I was in is, you can always, like, there's stories and things like that, just playing in the NBA and just playing basketball that, this was like way, way over the top, but you can draw on past stories and things like that, stories in the locker room that make sense. So I would say basketball would be the most relatable thing.
I think my favorite things that I've created for the show was K-pop group. That has been a dream of mine since I discovered J-pop and K-pop. I always wanted to travel to Korea to do a K-pop video. So the fact that I get to kind of experiment and play with that on this particular show has been a great opportunity. That's probably my favorite thing that I tackled. I think I connect with all of them in some way. One of the reasons why I liked Cherry's and Teresa's script so much is because each one of their storylines I connected with. Ashley growing up in America is something, I was born and raised in Canada, so having those influences and not knowing how Asian you are or how American or Canadian you can be is definitely something I touched with. Deadeye, because a little bit strange and a little bit quirky, and growing up creative and not really knowing where you belong is something I really connected with. Kat's sexual prowess when you're growing into your own and understanding that about yourself is something I really connected with. And Lolo's artistic side and free of expression is something I really connected with too, because I'm an artist first. So K-pop. K-pop, K-pop, K-pop. It was so much fun. And I think Lolo's character was one that I was really excited about, mainly because I really wanted her to just be expressive in her clothing and textiles and patterns. Growing up for me, I was kind of told I wasn't able to wear certain things and very monochromatic and kind of boring expression. So to be able to tackle Lolo in a way that I wish I dressed the way I did when I was younger, and even sometimes now, that's been something that was really fun to explore. Vancouver's great to shoot in because we can pass off as anything. Vancouver is just known to be like a chameleon in terms of to be able to transform itself from, for example, for this movie, China or New York or just basically any city. And I think Vancouver's great because we have great crews, great people. Desmond, who plays Clarence, is just a gem to dress and have fun with because he's such a beautiful human being. Making his traditional Chinese costume for our TV show within a movie was so much fun because he was so enthusiastic and so excited about it. But definitely creating the TV show within the movie was probably one of the funner pieces that we got to create. And the background, being able to showcase Shanghai and Beijing and Korean street style is incredibly fun to do. And we had the opportunity to be very playful and just really make it look interesting. That's something you wouldn't quite see every day here in Canada or America, because their street style is just off the hook. So being able to really tune into that has been an extremely fun opportunity.
Hi, I'm Chevapravatdumrong, the co-writer and one of the producers on JoyRide. I'm from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and this is my first produced movie, and I was a TV writer before this. One of the shows I worked on was Awkwafina is Nora from Queens with Teresa over here.
Hi, I'm Teresa Hsiao, also a co-writer and producer of JoyRide and co-creator of Awkwafina is Nora from Queens on Comedy Central. And I'm from just outside of Boston. So we're kind of like East Coast, Midwest situation here.
The process, it's very hard to pinpoint an exact point because it literally was just making each other laugh, like, you know, just like having fun as friends. And then literally even just typing on the final draft collab as friends up until it just was there. So it's kind of hard to nail down an exact time.
I think we were always writing and rewriting. So even though we started it in 2018, it was pretty different from, you know, what it is now. I think there were a lot more crazy bits that were in the movie that we ended up realizing that we unfilmable.
Those things cost money, turns out. You know, you can just type it. And
we were in
sometimes you
animation
can't actually
where you can just do anything.
Yes, everything in animation costs the same. Apparently in real life, with actual actors and stunt people, it costs more money sometimes. The Hangover, already comedy.
Yeah.
Bridesmaids.
Girls Trip.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we had never just seen an R-rated comedy featuring people who look like us before, and it was really exciting to be like, hey, we want to write a movie about our friends, about people who we've never really seen in these situations that can be funny and raunchy and messy. And but those were the movies that were kind of in our heads when we were writing this thing that we were like, no one will ever make.
No one, ever. What?
No one. Who will do this? The level of familiarity and just knowing that we're all in this together and we all want to make the best movie together was really nice.
Well, Audrey, clearly looking for success in her career, and then later on, looking for her actual birth mom. So, you know, a very clear journey right there. But I mean, overall, though, she's looking for her identity. Like, that's the core of the entire movie. She's just searching for what is supposed to be her true self, which is maybe a little different than what she'd actually grown up thinking what she was. So we're getting to watch her find that out.
I think Lolo, her journey in the beginning is just, she's fun, she's energy, she's a little crazy, she's got all these wild ideas. And I think she really learns through this journey of like, okay, settle down a little bit. There is a little bit of growing up to do that she has to learn from this whole journey. But part of it is also pushing Audrey on her identity journey because Lolo knows her best friend more than, you know, Audrey knows herself at times. She knows that this is something her friend needs.
Kat? Well, Kat on the surface is only searching for success and being famous and more success and more fame, but ultimately what we know that she actually needs to find is a sense of self-acceptance. So that is her journey underneath just being like, I'm a soap actress.
You know, everyone's had those moments where you've done something crazy in your life and you might feel a little bit ashamed. I'm not saying nothing from myself.
I mean, we did.
No,
What? We didn't write this movie from real life. We have no regrets,
You know,
personally.
you've done something a little wild and you feel a lot of shame and you just try and tamp it down and don't want anyone to know about it. And that's what Kat really has to realize is like, she used to be fun. She really just has to accept that and be okay with the person she is. Deadeye is a really great character in that in the beginning they really start out as a person who's just looking for friendship. They actually know who they are very distinctly. If they are a K-pop stan, they love BTS, but they've never really had friends around them. And so really like trying to hold on to the friends around them and then kind of figuring out through the movie and just, you know, their friendship with Audrey that there's someone who really deserves to not only have friends, but like kind of figure out their own identity journey as well.
Okay, this was the most fun casting process. You've seen it. They're great. And that greatness was literally already apparent in their first auditions, the first tapes that we saw of basically everyone. We could just see the potential and the spark right away. There were so many times where literally in the first tapes they sent, they were improvising things that just, we were like, that's great, put that in the movie. And it wound up in the movie. They're all hilarious. It was very, very fun finding our core four.
In particular for Audrey, we had known of Ashley Park from her work on Broadway with Mean Girls and also Emily in Paris. And when she came in and did her audition, we were just like, oh, okay, this is Audrey
Okay, that was
right
it.
here.
Yeah.
She made us cry in her first audition. And so definitely we're like, okay, Ashley, we love Ashley. Sherry Cola, amazing actress. We had known each other socially a little bit. I don't know. I don't think you had.
I don't think I had officially met her, but it was like friends of friends and sort of, yeah.
Yeah, and she had been on Good Trouble for a long time and just came in with that Lolo energy. We were like, oh.
She was Lolo.
There has to be a role for Stephanie in this movie, and we also just. Kat had been a little bit of a different character before, but because we were like, we need Stephanie in this movie, kind of shifted the character a little bit to fit a little bit more of what Stephanie did.
She came in, she really made it her own. She made it super hilarious. Oh my God. Okay, so they had been a staff writer on our friend's show. So we knew of their existence, but we hadn't known of their acting ability until we saw their tape, who our amazing casting director, Rich D'Elia, just said, oh, this is a very funny New York comic, watch their tape, and we died. We immediately watched it, we died, and then we found out later that they had done, 184 takes of it. They were like, if you watch it carefully, it was just like, I started in the morning, the light was one way. By the end, it was, and we don't even know which one of those that we got, but we do know that we watched it, we were like, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Deadeye was another character where our conception of it was maybe a little bit different, and then when Sabrina came in and did their thing, we were like, well, it's that now. Like, now we're just doing that.
I think we just really looked to our own friends. And basically, a lot of the characters have characteristics of not only ourselves, but also of our friends.
And we'll say their full names right now.
We'll say all their names so you know exactly who has the tattoo. Just kidding.
Composites, guys.
Composites.
But it's true. It's like I think grounding it and basing it on actual real personality traits of people that we knew, real stories of people that we knew, and like changing things here and there. But if you had that core of truth, I feel like that's what came across. They make the exact kind of movie that we wanted this to be. So we were like, all right. Well.
And when we were going around too, they made it really clear that they wanted us to be heavily involved in the movie, that they were like, this is your movie. We want to be here as much as we can to support you on this. And that was so important to us of just, having Seth, having Evan, having James Weaver and Josh Fagen, and Josh being there all day with us on set. They were so helpful because we had never done this before. This was new to us, and just having that experience was like really, really great. Having that experience, but also them being able to say like, okay, there are some things that we don't necessarily know about from the perspective of like, oh, this is very specific to your community, and them just kind of like trusting us with the process was also like wonderful.
There were improv moments. I feel like a huge laugh is when Lolo, they're doing that Harry Potter run, and every screening, when Lolo goes, Hagrid, like people die. And that was something that the cast came up with kind of like on the day.
They were so good at just, obviously they were put into situations where we're like, oh, this is hopefully a funny situation, but they were so good at coming up with their own bits and things. Stephanie as Kat yelling, it's not a bop it, it's my asshole, is forever gonna be like the line that sticks with me as like just so funny, definitely not on the page. And so she just screamed it.
We are so excited for this, it's ridiculous. Like South by Southwest was a party. That crowd is amazing. It's always a great place for, it was a 9 p.m. screening. Yes, maybe they were, well lubricated for the film. But
as everyone should be.
As everyone should be. We had that awesome thing where, like, truly, it's like people would laugh and then they'd be laughing so hard they didn't hear the next joke, and that's all you could want. We were like, yes, now they're gonna have to go see it again.
Yeah, I think it's been so long since we've had that experience of being in a theater and like hearing other people laugh and just having that shared experience of like enjoying a comedy with strangers. I think it's been so, just like you don't see that many comedies come out anymore, and it was a really nice reminder of like, oh, I remember back when I just took all my friends and we went out to see this movie and we just died laughing, and just being able to talk about it with your friends after. I thought like that was so cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a group watch because aside from the laughs, there's also, you see in the movie, shocking parts in it where people are like, ah! And having that be sort of a cathartic moment with your friends also, it's just like, okay, wow, we got through that together. Wow, we didn't think we were gonna see that, and we saw it.
Yeah, so I'm playing Kenny, who is a basketballer who plays for the Beijing Kaoyas, which means fried duck in Chinese. They're absolutely hilarious. Adele is fantastic. I love her to death. So that has been the most fun part. Well, I've known Adele since Crazy Rich Asians, and she's amazing. So I love her work. I respect her immensely. And so when she asked me to come onto this, I was like, of course. But then I didn't know what I was signing up for, and I read the script, and I was like, this is freaking hilarious. Of course I want to do this. And she's fantastic. This is her first time directing. It's her directorial debut. And I spoke to her beforehand, and she was like, no, I'm not nervous. I know what I'm doing. And she absolutely does. She's down there like a pro. And the footage that we're getting is amazing. And I think it's going to cut together to make a ridiculous film. So I think she's doing a fantastic job. Good work, Adele. I don't think you could put together a more iconic group of comedic Asian talent power doing this movie. It's just absolutely insane and ridiculous, and it's exactly what it needs to be. I just saw them all together as a group performing a scene for the first time because my stuff isn't with the whole group, and I was actually blown away by how funny it was. So I think everyone's in for a treat. I'm very, very excited about how it's going to turn out. Yeah, I mean, I think the journey of Audrey is very relatable for me. I mean, for any third culture kid, any ethnic kid born in white society, overseas or whatever, you go through a journey trying to find your identity and figure out who you are. And that's exactly what she goes through in this movie. And we see her grow, we see her come to accept her culture and be proud of it. And I can definitely relate to that. And it's beautiful. I've seen people that look like me on screen since I can remember watching movies, right? There's always been Asian people, but I've never felt represented until much more recently. I mean, my parents teach martial arts. I've always watched kung fu movies and martial arts movies and that. But I found myself turning to Asian cinema when I was in my formative years to find representation and find men on screen that I could aspire to be like, because I didn't find that in a lot of the Western media that I was consuming. And so it wasn't really until a lot more recently that I feel like can say that I've been represented. And you know, we still got a little bit of a way to go, but we're making strides, and it's getting there, and that's very encouraging for me because that's what I'm trying to do.
I'm playing Clarence, the goodest boy, the manifestation of the golden retriever puppy, which I dressed for today as well. No, he is religious for a particular reason and very sheltered as far as, you know, certain things that might happen in this R-rated comedy go. So he is... he sort of serves as this fun counterpoint to the madness of everyone else, while also bringing his own completely crazy sense of bewilderment, I think is a good way to describe him. Every goddamn scene has been incredible, and that is, I work mostly with Steph as well, and it's just been, I just wrapped out and we just had a moment where I was like talking to her, and it was like, yeah, I don't know how to describe it. Like when you have a great scene partner, it just elevates everything. And we have such a similar sense of humor, I think, that it was just like pinging off each other and like elevating all the jokes that were already fantastic because of like Teresa and Jerry and Adele all know what the hell they're doing. It's so raunchy, my goodness. Like the stuff that they have come up with is kind of like for a culture that is repressed, that is as famously repressed as we are, for us to be able to like let loose on this, it's like kind of a once in a lifetime like eat all you can buffet opportunity, and it like I wanted to be here. I wanted so bad to be a part of this. Watching 4 Asian American people go through this huge like butterfly transformation, and obviously Ashley's story, you know, resonating quite deeply with all the very nuanced identity stuff that goes on in the whole East Asian community, is that stuff mirrors real life pretty well. You know, the zany comedy and skin that we put on top of it aside, those are actual issues that we tackle and struggle with, and no one has clear answers to. I think the first films I ever watched with an Asian person in them were the Stephen Chow films. Those, you know, Shaolin Soccer, I think, and what was the other one? Kung Fu Hustle, I believe. It wasn't that it wasn't authentic, right? But when you're part of that Asian diaspora, that, you know, or a third culture kid, and you've grown up in the Western world, those things don't exactly quite reflect you either. The trappings are things that are familiar to you, but they don't exist in the same context as what you experience in your real life. And it's nice to be part of a new wave of films that are now catering to kids who grew up like how I grew up, which is, I admit, a very specific circumstance. I mean, it's a migrant experience, and you won't get that necessarily from films from, so to speak, motherland, right? Nor will you get that, of course, from like films that have traditionally come out of like Hollywood and, you know, Western society. It's only when those two things intersect, as we do as people intersect, that you start to get these cool little things where it's like, there are so many moments where I've been on this film where I'm like, this is my experience. Holy crap. Yes, it's much funnier than how it actually happened in real life, but I struggled with my identity too. There's so many different experiences, and the goal is really to try to get as many of those out there as possible, as opposed to squishing them all into one thing. This has been such a nice experience, and I knew Sherry prior, and then just coming in and Ashley has this like mad leading lady energy while being freaking hilarious, and then Sabrina is such an incredible, like they make these wild choices that should not work, and they make them work, and that is so impressive. I'm so freaking impressed with Sabrina, and then of course Steph, who I'm working with a bunch, is just what a giving scene partner. Like, what a dream to work with someone who is just pinging off the same wavelength as you. And then just like between cut and action, just hanging out with them has been like so fun, because we've gotten to share stories, and we get to share stories about shared experiences, and there's no explaining that needs to happen here. There's just this shared culture that unites all of us, where I think it's a special moment in time, and it's a special thing to experience.
That was something that, you know, we like worked ourselves towards as a group, and came away really, really pleased with the result of, and feel like it really launches the movie and tells you like, this is exactly what the movie is. This is the chocolate and the peanut butter, you know what I mean? It's the sweet and the absurd, or the profane, if you will.
The story of the movie is how the four of them coming together, not only in the movie but outside, is just like something that I think audiences are going to love to see, not only in the theater but like in the roll up and like the coming out of the movie. I think we're about to introduce, you know, the movie going public to like four incredibly new faces and funny people.
I think of like Ashley as like the point guard of like, I'm kind of running the offense. I have to be a little more grounded than everybody else, but I still get to have fun. I still shoot every once in a while, but often I'm passing and, you know, letting someone else shine. And Sherry is bringing this just like incredibly aggressive comedic energy, where she is just like a firecracker and just bringing like commentary on everything, a big joke to everything. She's driving action. She's saying, let's do this. You know, Stephanie is bringing this like, you know, kind of highfalutin, slightly pretentious energy, slightly judgy energy, but then also has this like really warm, like gooey center to her that really, really works for the movie. And I think you need next to a character like Lolo, who is so outrageous and so aggressive. We did a table read. Several of them had not met before, and they were instantly like best friends. I remember having a dinner with them shortly before we started shooting, and it was like they had known each other for 10 years. It was just like this absurd, like it just clicked into place. All of them had a lot of similarities to their actual characters, which also helped, and we wrote those characters toward them. But the chemistry, I think, you know, James said this, it's what makes the movie go. Like the movie, you know, we're so proud of it. The best thing about it to me is the chemistry between the cast. It is these four people and you believing that they're friends and wanting to be friends with them. And that is a tribute to certainly the writing, but it's a tribute really to those actors and what they built together.
I think you go make a movie and it's like camp, where everyone kind of comes together for a period of time and then everybody leaves and goes back home. And so, you know, we kind of had like our camp reunion in a way at South by Southwest a couple weeks ago. And I know that the cast has seen each other and they certainly talk, but like seeing them all together in that space was really interesting to see, and funny, and just fun as an observer to watch them kind of come together and come alive again.
They all spent every waking hour together while making this movie. And I mean every waking hour, because I, as the producer, often worried that they were not sleeping, because I would see their Instagram posts at 4 in the morning with them just hanging out in each other's rooms. And like, I'm like, get some rest. We have your call time is 6 a.m. Like, what are you doing? But like, that was the level of closeness where they lived in each other's rooms.
Josh made really good friends with Baron Davis on a movie called The Night Before, which we made a few years ago. Unbeknownst to me, he kept his phone number in his his cell phone. And there was always a role, kind of, you know, as typically happens with these scripts, kind of an ND, hilarious, you know, athlete, you know, kind of person that we were going to write that was written into the movie. And, you know, honestly, kudos to Josh. It was just like, he was like, I'm just going to call Baron and see if he'll do it. Baron Davis likes to be in films.
Yeah.
And he enjoys the experience. And he was like, I'll do it. I'm in. Let's do it. You know, there was, so he showed up and it was great.
Something that Adele, Cherry, and Teresa really said from the beginning, which was like, we want hot Asian men in this movie that the audience can be lusting after and that our characters can be lusting after. And I think, you know, they did an amazing job of casting those guys as well. And they were so fun and game to come in and just kind of be, you know, a little bit objectified, candidly. And they were down with that. And I think there was some kind of, you know, there was some nice payback there, I think, in a good way. And also, you know, we were obviously celebrating them as well. So we really got an amazing cast of cameos and people to come in and do, you know, the roles that filled out the movie that really balanced out our main cast, and I think, you know, makes the tapestry of the whole thing work really well.
They're first-time filmmakers in Adele and Cherry and Teresa. This is the first movie that Adele's directed and the first film that Cherry and Teresa have written that has been produced. You know, people wanted to show up for them, and I think that's always exciting as a producer when you're partnered with other producers and a director that people really want to show up for, and they did, and it was, you know, that was nice for Josh and I and Seth and Evan that like. These filmmakers that we had bet on and were excited to sort of support in terms of making the movie had people that were excited to bet on them and come and sort of give them their best, you know. I think identity and like finding your place in the world is the thing that will make the, you know, the funny set pieces that and the character moments that we've, you know, that exist in the film. I think that's the thing that it kind of all ladders up to, that I think every audience is gonna, you know, that every kind of audience is gonna be able to relate to. Like, who am I and what am I doing here?
These are all characters who over the course of this movie find themselves, but really they learn to love themselves more than they do at the beginning of the movie. They're all characters who are in some kind of doubt about themselves. Audrey's in doubt about her place in the world and where she comes from and what she's supposed to be doing. And Lolo is struggling with balancing, you know, being an artist with having to be an adult in the world and the judgment that she receives for that. And Kat has some shame over her past. And Deadeye doesn't have friendships, doesn't have real friendships that they feel confident about. And so it's all about these people coming to realize, like, through this journey, like, I'm enough, I love myself. I hope that's what the audience feels at the end of it. You know, I hope the audience feels like anyone in the audience can see themselves in one of these characters and come away from the movie being like, that's me and my friends. We're awesome. You know, they're awesome, but that makes us awesome. Like, I want everyone to feel like this movie is an insane party ride and also a warm hug at the end of it too, of like affirmation of them and themselves and feeling good about themselves.
It's really fucking funny. It's just as funny a movie as we've ever made, and it lands the plane at the end about me being about something. And, you know, I think that like I couldn't be more proud as one of the founders of Point Grey to have produced a movie with the people behind the camera and in front of the camera that are in and behind this movie. But that's not why people should go see the movie. The people should go see the movie because it's fucking awesome.
My favorite set actually was one of the smaller sets. It was Nine Ni's bedroom. It was done in a location in Chinatown. We had to add 3 walls to it. But the idea was it was a very romantic environment because she's transitioning into her roots of being Chinese. And so it was a very rich set, and I thought we really brought a mood to the set, and that was probably the most rewarding set, even though it's one of the smaller sets. Absolutely. 2 characters particularly rang true to me. One was Lolo, because I'm an artist and I could relate to her being an artist and thinking that way and being kind of open-minded to many things. And also there was a line in the original script where Audrey felt more at home being in China than she felt in America. And being born a visible minority and growing up in Canada, and then going back to China and feeling more at home there myself, I totally related. When she said that comment, I said the same thing. I feel more at home in China, even though I've lived most of my life here. The most challenging aspect of the show was trying to build Beijing and Seoul, Korea in Vancouver. Architecturally, there's nothing that's similar at all. So thanks to a really good location department and everyone working together, we found some good locations that were good starting points, and I can embellish from there. And it got us to a point where I think it's believable. Hopefully it convinces the audience that we are in China for parts of the movie. I feel that my own life experience growing up in Canada as a Chinese Canadian and also spending time in Asia really helped me understand the motivation of the characters there, the environment that they're in, the surprise of being in that environment, and then the comfort level that came with time being there.
Chau is probably, on the surface, a very typical Chinese businessman. The kind that many people who have interacted with this type of person will be familiar with, but he also is kind of disguising a more sophisticated layer of competency that is kind of like hidden by this facade of what people expect Chinese businessmen to be. Meeting Chau for the first time, the heroes are meeting him for the first time, and they are trying to get him to sign a business deal. And on the surface, he is more interested in partying, but there is a greater awareness on his part beneath all that, as we'll learn in the film. He's in some ways half testing Audrey, and also half living his life, living it up.
I'm Sabrina Wu. I'm playing Deadeye. Okay, I really saw myself in the two girls in Booksmart in the sense that I worked very hard at school, and I was shocked to learn in college that you could have partied and done drugs and had a lot of friends and made out a lot and still gotten into a good school. And I also loved Alice Wu's movie Saving Face. I feel like it's like about like two queer like Asian women, like I was like in high school, and those are like fully adult characters, but I think it was like the most like honest and like nuanced like representation of like what it's like to be Asian American with like parents who know that you're gay, and it was just nice. Yeah. I knew that I'd be auditioning for the part of Deadeye, and I kind of always knew that I probably couldn't play most characters, and Deadeye was such a freak that this might be my one and only opportunity to really like shine. And so I was really, really excited. I mean, yeah, like I feel like I have a very, I like to be big and talk about crazy things, and like it was just fun to read a script that was so fun and like so down to be like dirty and raunchy and weird. So I was very, very excited in that sense. Yeah. In stand-up, like the practice of stand-up is like doing your material over and over and over and over and grinding, which I don't think is necessarily true of auditioning. I did 187 takes for my self-tape because I just thought that's what you do. I eventually, like, I think during callbacks got like an acting coach to help me prep for the next one, and she was like, yeah, you should never do more than 3 takes. But I personally peaked at 167. So, and I got the part. So I don't know, maybe this is my process. It definitely helped a lot to just like have practice writing so many jokes, and especially like in the movie, it's been a very collaborative process, and like I spent a lot of time like, you know, like like there's a lot of space for me to like come up with alts or like funny things for Deadeye to say, and that's been really, like, it's just helpful to have that background, like to have like jokes sort of always on my mind. Deadeye is, and I mean this in the most loving way possible, like a total freak. And I think has always known that they're a freak, and I think what's so beautiful about them is that they were sort of like what I was like in middle school. Like I knew I was very weird, and I would like make very, very weird jokes, or like I would pretend to be stuck in a recycling bin head first because I just loved that. I don't know, I thought that was like good physical comedy. And like obviously that part of me has been shamed out of existence, but like for Deadeye, it's like still there, and like they're just so true to who they are. And I think that's like very weird in society to like not conform or not feel so pressured that you like totally change who you are, especially if you're a freak, you know? So. In the movie, Deadeye has so much love for Audrey, is like probably, I would say, infatuated. And that's sort of like a bit, I feel like at the core, like I think Audrey is also somebody who like goes for what they want and is like, even though they're unsure about themselves, like definitely like doesn't cave to like other people, like to other people's expectations. Like they're very strong, like have a very strong sense of self. And I think like Deadeye thinks that's super sick. And like also somebody who like is very lonely. Like I'm sure it's very cool that Audrey has so many friends. And so like I think there's a lot of respect for Audrey. And then Lolo is like Deadeye's cousin. And I think there's just like a very familial love. Like I think sometimes they razz each other, or they might like, you know, like be annoyed at each other, or like, you know, like because there's like a sense of security that they'll always be there for each other as family. And in terms of Kat, honestly, they don't interact enough in this movie. But I love Steph as a person. I think Deadeye just thinks that I think Deadeye is so pure and is like doesn't really spend time in their life like hating people. But yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of respect, I feel like, for these 3 people. Like I think there's just like a lot of love in Deadeye's heart. Yeah. And like the characters in the movie, like we have really distinct personalities, and so it was like just interesting to navigate at first, but then we went on this big adventure, like a lot like in the movie, and like we've like come to bond with each other in little ways, and they feel a lot like family. Like Ashley and I, we have probably spent the most amount of time together playing Catan in a ferocious way, and like Steph and I like, you know, go to like the farmer's market together. Like they just feel like family, and that we've like found little ways, even though like we're quite different as people, to like really care for one another and understand each other. Yeah, I just think there's like a level of self-assuredness that like Deadeye never got prior to the trip. Like I think even though they were true to themselves, like I think they just lived in an environment that was like not good for them, like family that didn't really understand them, like online people that they had yet to meet in real life to like come through for them. And like by the end you just see that they're like so comfortably them. And like just like a lot of self-love. So like it's meant so much to me that like some of my heroes, like Teresa, who wrote the movie, like when I was in college, I was like, she was on my to-do list forever to email and reach out to, just about like writing on like a comedy show. And like it's like meant the world to me that I get the opportunity to like perform and with people I've admired from afar for so long. I just really hope that like Deadeye as a character like sort of comforts like people who feel very lonely and like feel like they're not quite like everybody else around them and feels the pressure to change, and that like feels inspired to like stay true to who they are and like maintain hope that like you will find your people. Like everybody has a place in the world.
I mean, when we first read the script, it was just hilarious. I mean, that is a very rare occurrence where like the actual script itself is just ridiculously funny.
Yeah, it was just really funny. It was as simple as that. The characters, and like, to say something's funny means that many things must be working well, but the characters were good, the story was good, the plot was good. And then
at the end, you cry.
Yeah, and it was
like,
very...
There's a third act turn that straight up made me cry.
There was like it was like very emotional, which are the exact things that we're looking for, yeah.
A lot of the time as producers on films, like we have to help bring the heart. Sometimes people have it like kind of funny and they don't have a good balance. And that was one of the nice things about Teresa and Cherry. Like they could actually do it. They could bring both to the table and like had a pretty good balance.
Yeah, and from the very beginning, the idea like fundamentally was both funny and emotionally resonant. So, it's like, it's hard to do that. And we just know that like, that contrast works very well and that like balance works very well, and you can make things a lot filthier if you also are like anchored in some emotional place often.
I think it's really difficult for actors to both balance the comedy and the emotion, and really that's when it comes down to Adele, the director. Like, you know, like watching the footage, like they'll say something and be like, was that good? Was that too crazy? Should I do it again? And she ultimately was the one who was the barometer that knew when they were going too far and knew how to push them in the right direction.
Casting a film like this is like the key thing in a lot of ways, you know, and finding 4 people who work well together and who are funny and can carry the emotional weight of the story and stay grounded and navigate the tone.
And then you have to have them like balanced together. You can't have one person overpowering the other. So there's like a real synergy they have to like find amongst themselves. But I think Ashley, you know, as the main character kind of like grounded everything. And by no means does that mean she's not one of the funniest. They're all incredibly funny, but she was the one with like the core story who kind of like grounded you in reality.
Yeah. But I think like a great comedy ensemble, like people kind of take turns being like the straight man and the crazy one and the wild one and the one who's trying to control things and the one who is out of control, and they do that very well. Like they pass off that baton well, and they're all believable as the people who are like elevating the situations and the people who are trying to like control the situations, which is important, you know? Sabrina is so funny, and the performance is like a really hard needle to thread. Yeah, in that you meet the character and you think, yeah, it almost feels like the McLovin of the group a little bit. It's like the wacky, weird one who maybe is like existing in an emotional place that is not quite as grounded or resonant as the rest of the characters.
It's essentially just about like what is home to you and like who is your family.
Yeah, knowing who you are, feeling like you belong, knowing where you came from. I think all those themes are like very prevalent and resonant in the movie, yeah.
And there's the laughs, and then there's the big emotional kind of turn at the end.
Yeah,
and
people really cry.
I think people are just like their guard has been dropped so much by how many times they've laughed that when the emotional turn hits, they're floored, and you get some tears in that theater.
Yeah. I think, yeah, like it has such like basic relatable ideas that I think almost anybody will find something in the movie that, and like I never like to be too directive with it. There's so much that you could relate to in the movie.
If you don't relate to something, there's something wrong.
Exactly.
You have a part of you missing.
But if there's something wrong with you, you'll probably relate to one of the characters in the movie because there's something wrong with all of them too.
We love making like surprisingly emotional but extremely funny films that are raunchy, and then that raunch maybe makes you cry a little in the end and then laugh a little more.
Yeah, exactly. I think like there's not a lot of people who even seem that interested in trying to make big comedic R-rated movies that really destroy in a theater and stand the test of time, hopefully, and have something in them in like an emotional way that resonates for years and years and years to come. And it's something, that we genuinely love doing and that we've been more good at than bad at over the years. So we'll keep trying.
I'm Sherry Cola, and I play Lolo Chen. I was born in Shanghai, and I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley, came to the United States when I was almost 4. So I was really immersed in the 626. That's the area code, like boba at every corner. So I was lucky to kind of grow up around my culture. My mom has a Chinese restaurant that she opened when I was in 5th grade. So I'm very about being Asian, you know what I mean? And just finally realizing how long representation has been missing. So being a part of this movie and coming from those roots really means a lot to me. The first time I saw myself represented on screen, I think about Mulan, of course, and Mulan was pretty authentic, but not in the sense of, it was an animated character, it was a cartoon. And I feel like throughout Hollywood, Asians were always depicted as kind of cartoons, right? In terms of caricatures, the long duck dongs, the ling ling, you forgot your bling blings, the fook me, fook yous, you know what I mean? I feel like we were always portrayed as supporting characters, and to finally be a lead is just, I'm still mind blown, and I still can't grasp the fact that this is reality. But there were, representation, there was representation in, phenomenal ways, like Margaret Cho, considering I'm a stand-up comic, watching her be so bold and outspoken and kind of break the stereotypes of the silent Asian woman who doesn't want to rock the boat. Margaret Cho was such a breath of fresh air when I was growing up, and to now also be a bisexual Asian female stand-up comic, I'm fully inspired by her. I think about movies like Joy Luck Club. That was so iconic and just once in a lifetime, really, because that was in the 90s. And then cut to 25 years later, we get Crazy Rich Asians. And these were, big studio Asian-led films. And neither of those were R-rated comedies. This is an R-rated comedy. We see these Asian leads, and R-rated, to me, R stands for, representation. Refreshing, raunchy, just ridiculously funny. Like, I love that we're existing as unapologetic, raw, flawed human beings that you root for, because you've never seen faces like this on the big screen in this way. This movie is truly for everyone before us and everyone after us. This movie is the first of its kind. Like, period. It has never existed. You know what I mean? Like, every day I look at myself in the mirror, when will my reflection show? And I'm just like, I'm part of something that is gonna be impactful in so many ways. It's gonna teach little Asian girls to, live out loud and be themselves. When I first read the script, I was just blown away that this was being made, Lionsgate, Point Grey, that's Seth Rogen, and the fact that this is Adele Lim's directorial debut, this is such a big moment for the community, So I was just like on cloud 9 that it's real and it exists, and the fact that there are 4 Asian leads that are so different. This is just continuing to prove that we are not a monolith. We can have the same background or culture or come from Asia, etc., but still have different stories to tell and still have different personalities and outlooks on life. I think that's what we've been trying to convince America and once again, Hollywood, that we're all different and, it's not always the same story. All 4 leads have different, points of view and different battles. You know what I mean? Like, all of us have arcs. Like, there was a moment on the way home, there was a moment on the way home when Ashley and I were just, tired and just so grateful. And I was thinking like, wow, every single thing we've filmed is a big moment in the movie. Like everything we've shot is important. And she was like, I guess this is what it's like to be leads of a movie. You know what I mean? And it's like in that moment we realize we've never been in this position of actually being prioritized in this way. It is so hilarious, hysterical. Like you will be crying, you will be peeing. And at the same time, you'll just be tugged at the heartstrings because, it's about family, it's about friendship, it's about, belonging, it's about who you are, it's about identity, it's about culture, and it's also about sex. You know what I mean? And for us to show all of those layers, and not just be good at math, not just be, a nail technician, like we've seen all of that. We've seen us in these supporting characters, that don't have a voice, and fully these 4 characters have a voice. I've never felt so liberated and I've never embraced all of my identities so much and so proudly. I'm an immigrant, I'm female, I'm queer, I'm Asian, all these things that society never rooted for. I see as superpowers now, like we were brainwashed to think those were weaknesses, but I'm like, no, like this is what's gonna set me apart. This is why my story is unique and I'm ready to tell it, So Lolo Chen, so this is her tattoo that says free spirit. I might get this permanently tattooed. That's how much this character means to me and how much it parallels my life, to be honest. She lives out loud. She's very unapologetic. She's raunchy. She's kind of a loose cannon and outspoken. Things that come out of her mouth are, like just wild. You know what I mean? And she's so just sexually confident in a sense, but at the same time, there are so many insecurities. She's not where she wants to be in her career. She's an artist, and she's very expressive, and she puts her heart into her work, but she's not ready to show the world. And I think we can all, relate to that. So I think the fact that all these characters have so many layers and are so relatable, like this is gonna be one of those situations where, there's gonna be a BuzzFeed quiz. You know what I mean? Like, are you a Lolo? Are you a Deadeye? Are you an Audrey? Are you a cat? Because we're so fleshed out, and so specific and unique and just special. All these characters have a story to tell and really have just such a distinct personality, but are also similar at the same time because they're all, finding themselves and, just trying to belong and, etc. and trying to find friendship. Yeah. The whole process has definitely been really collaborative. It felt like a team sport from day one. And, the writers, producers, director definitely let us improv and bring a lot of ourselves into these characters and into the movie. Like the amount of times we've just like tried to hold in laughter and the amount of times we've like broken in a scene. I can't wait for the gag reel. Just watching movies like Bridesmaids and seeing, the bloopers for that. I can't wait for the world to see ours because it is out of this world. Just so funny. This movie is so funny. Like every single day, the whole joke is Sherry makes a speech every night. Because, just like how I'm talking right now, I've been doing it on set and off set and talking about how this is my favorite movie. This movie is so good. I can't wait to watch this movie. Like, this is gonna blow people away because, once again, it's never been done. And 2, it is just so funny. With the fact that we've never been represented in this way and we've never been leads in a movie in this way, like, there's almost this special bond of, past traumas and like, this light at the end of the tunnel, this combination of like we're doing this and we get to do it together, the four of us, you know? And I'm so excited for Sabrina. This is their first acting gig, you know, and they're really gonna blow the audience away because Deadeye, this character, which acts as kind of the glue, you know, it's like the bizarre, like outlandish character who says the darndest things, but is so perfect, you know. This movie wouldn't be the same without Deadeye, and I can say the same about all of our characters, Audrey, Kat, Lolo. Like, it is just the perfect recipe of you know, ingredients, you know, for this movie that's the first of its kind. Like, I can't wait for the world to see it. Adele told me that she saw me open for Ronny Chieng's Netflix taping, and she was like, who's that girl? You know, because I've always wanted to work with Adele. Obviously, this is such a massive moment, you know? It's her directorial debut. She wrote Crazy Rich Asians. She wrote Raya and the Last Dragon, these two movies that were so, you know, impactful for our culture. And the fact that this is her directorial debut, and this is my first time being one of the leads of a movie, like the fact that we get to do this new thing together and kind of, you know, be collaborative. And, you know, like I said, it's always been a team effort from day one, you know.
I play Catherine Wong, otherwise known as Cat, otherwise known as Kitty Cat, otherwise known as Pussycat Kitty Cat. And she is a budding Chinese soap opera star and an actress, if you will. And she has this kind of persona of perfection and that she's got all of her, you know, life under control. She's engaged, but we come to learn that maybe she's more of a mess than she'd like to admit. So I met Teresa Hsiao, one of our writers, on Awkwafina's Nora from Queens, and that was in 2019. And right after we worked together, she was like, I'm working on this movie. I think you'd be perfect for it. And when we started auditioning and things like that, actually the really juicy story is that I went into the Point Grey office, and when I was living in New York back in the day before I was an actor full-time, I worked in a wood shop. And I built these handmade wooden voice boxes called Brand New Noise was the brand, but we worked with the MoMA and different musicians. Anyway, I was the first employee at that wood shop, and I walked into the Point Grey office after being in LA for a week. This was like right before Everything Everywhere. I walked into the Point Grey office, there's this big bookshelf, and on the bookshelf I saw a Brand New Noise voice box, and they're all handmade. And at that time, literally there was like maybe 2 employees since I had been there, so it was very likely that I had helped build that voice box. And I was like, oh, I think I'm supposed to work with these people. So that's the tea that I always tell Josh Fagen, our producer. But also Ashley Park, I knew from Broadway. We had come up in the theater world together. And when I went to LA, also Sherry Cola was one of my first friends in LA, and she introduced herself to me outside of an event. So I just felt really excited to work with these people that I felt excited to celebrate and uplift and have fun with. And when I was, you know, growing up and, you know, I was a comedy adjacent, people would always be like, oh, you should be in a movie with Seth Rogen one day. And I never thought that it would be like how this movie came together, that it would be us 4 front and center and Seth kind of being our papa in the back. So it's just, you know, we haven't had an opportunity to be so unhinged, and it was really fun to just get to let it all hang out. So I feel like, so Kat and Audrey are college best friends, and I feel like, you know, when you go away to college and you're trying to build a new version of yourself, I feel like they find each other at that time in their lives, and they bond over a cappella and just being the sort of most, you know, having their shit together versions of themselves, which I think is a tension that then happens with Kat and Lolo, because Lolo is a childhood best friend of Audrey's. But Kat represents like a leveling up that Audrey got to have in college. Yeah, and I think they're really, really good friends, but I think what's so beautiful is that they also fail each other, and there are ways in which they are so self-absorbed or self-involved that they don't always have each other's best interest in mind, which I think kind of comes to a head in the film. I would say that this film is four best friends on an adventure of a lifetime, and debauchery and chaos ensue. I think I don't think it's a coming of age story. It's like a love who you are story. The world is not ready for Sabrina Wu. And not to brag, but I have very good taste. And the first time I ever met them on a Zoom, I was like, that person is Deadeye, and that person should be cast as Deadeye. Don't even give them a callback. Like that, I want to be friends with that person. So they are so amazing. They're a tour de force. They beatbox, they dance, they're a stand-up, they're an incredible writer. This is their first feature, and they probably told a story of how they put themselves on tape like 95 times. But I love Sabrina, and I'm so excited for, the world to just fall in love with Deadeye and Sabrina. So I saw this film at South by Southwest, and it honestly reinvigorated my belief in comedies again. I think we haven't had a big studio comedy in a while that's really landed, and being in that room with, 1,200 people or however many people were in that room, hearing people scream and yell and just laugh, 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 it felt so good to just have a good time. And our movie has a lot of heart to it, but it's also not meant to be anything but fun. I think it's meant to make you feel good and feel titillated and alive. And it was so amazing to feel that with 1,200 other people. Sherry Cola likes to say, she coined it very early on, this movie is the first of its kind. And it really is true, right? Sometimes I find myself wanting to think that we're further along than we are, but the truth is that we haven't had a movie like this. And when I was a kid, the funniest Asian was like in 16 Candles, and that was not okay, And so I always thought that I honestly left the comedy scene because I was like, it didn't feel like there was space for me to not be just the butt of a joke or a flex, right? Of like, oh, this is the diversity flex. And so in this movie, the four of us, we get to completely make fun of ourselves, and at our own cost, with our own hands. And it's nice. It's like, it's very liberating, empowering. It feels like we're reclaiming the chaos and the hilarity of just being who we are without being laughed at, And there is something very profoundly different about that when the writers and the creative team are caring for us in that way. Cherry and Teresa are two sick fucks. They are our writers, and they are actually, Teresa is more visibly a sick fuck in some ways, but Cherry is like this weird closeted. She's like very petite, and you think she, I don't know, just would be bookish or kind of. She's pretty chill. She's like very much an adult, but her brain is so nasty. She just comes up with the craziest things. Both of them wrote on Family Guy, which I guess makes sense. But it's fun. Yeah, I think they were so collaborative. Point Grey likes to do lots of alts. And so there was a writer's tent, and everybody was like writing jokes as we were filming. And I think as we kind of got the hang of the process of filming and the got a hold of our characters, we would kind of hole away sometimes and start to write our own jokes. And then we would like go to our mommies and be like, okay, here are our bits. Which ones do you like?
Okay, so early on when, Kat is this soap opera star, she's such an actress. I am like really, when I'm not in glam, I'm like in overalls, grease stains on my Carhartts, like, dirt under my fingernails because I'm out in the garden. And when I was trying to sort of build the character of Kat and push her as far away from me as possible, I was like, oh, you know what? The one thing I know about Kat is she definitely has acrylic nails. Like she has long nails. And I've never had long nails in my life. And so that was the first choice I wanted to make. I got to Canada, I was like, put them on me. And then I just hated them. Like I could not do anything. I could not put my contacts in. I could not text. And like I would meet people, I would meet crew members, or, I would be, again, like we would wrap set. I'd come back into the overalls and like Blundstones, get me a deal, all right? But I would still have these nails on. And so I would look like some sort of like, crunchy human with just crazy nails. And I remember throughout the entirety of filming, when I would meet new people, meet new friends, I would be like, hey, I'm not actually like this. No judgment on nails, they're great. They're not really me. This is just what I do for work. So that is to say, we're very different in that way. And I've never had acrylic since. I think Ashley called it the summer camp we never got to go to when we were kids. And it really did feel like that. In Vancouver, we all stayed in the same apartment and we would wrap like after long hours. And then we would always end up in somebody's room and get like Asian takeout. One day, the first week of filming after the Theragun scene, that Friday we had to film the Theragun scene. And I remember I wrapped at like 3 a.m. We got back to the apartment and I texted the group and I was like, hey, are you guys up? I just wrapped. And they were like, yeah, we're in Sherry's room. And I go into the room and they had a whole charcuterie board and they were binge watching Squid Game without me because that was the week that it came out. But they stayed up until 6 in the morning and I couldn't catch up at that point. So I just went to bed, but they stayed up until 6 in the morning watching the entire season. And I guess it's pretty rare. Not rare, but it was a very special kind of camaraderie that we have. And we're all very different, but the chemistry between us is really special. And we do take really good care of each other. And I think also it was so fun to we ate such good food. Like we would always just eat such good Asian food. And